If you grew up in the 90s, you know what a yarl is.
Give me back my voice. It's my voice too.
But if not, have no fear, because today we are ranking 15 of the best and worst yarlers of rock and metal, and we're starting with Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam. Of course, we need to start with what could be considered the gold standard of this style. Eddie wasn't the first to do it, but he's become synonymous with the sound, especially on tracks like the quintessential yarler Yellow Ledbetter, which to this day there are no official lyrics to because frankly, it's indecipherable and to an extent it feels like he's in on the joke. Now frankly, how people feel about Eddie and Pearl Jam is extremely varied, even in our own Discord community, which people either love or hate him. Personally, I really like his vocals. It's like the perfect balance of silly and imitatable, but with genuine passion, emotion, and skill. He's on key, and on tracks like Jeremy, I can really feel the vibes. His performance, all over 10 in particular, is goated in my opinion. So he is going to S tier. Fight me.
Let's get it on!
And by the way, I know this is kind of a silly, stupid list, but you know what?
Fuck you, it's January!
If you are enjoying it so far, though, be sure to hit the like button and comment your own favorites down below. But next up, we have Kyle Thomas of Exhorder.
Want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
So on the flip side, regular viewers know that I really can't stand Exhorder. I've tried many times, but as I said in my bands I just can't get into video, I just can't get into them, and it has a lot to do with Kyle. Don't get me wrong, he seems like a cool enough guy, but this just isn't a cool guy tier list. It's the yarler tier list, and his yars are like nails on a chalkboard to me. It's sloppy and just downright annoying, and people got mad at me for seeming to imply that he copied Phil Anselmo, but I am well aware that he did it first, and it was Phil who was inspired by Kyle. That said, Phil is a far more talented vocalist in my opinion, and he pretty much perfected this particular approach when it comes to the groove metal style. So yeah, sorry Kyle, going to D tier. And as long as we're talking about him, let's go with Phil Anselmo from Pantera. Now, like I said, I think that Phil took what he heard bands like Exhorder doing and then chiseled it down to its finest qualities. Not to mention, the dude had pipes back in the day. He could hit those falsettos just as easily as those more gruff and commanding yarls. I'd also say that he has one of the most aggressive approaches on this list overall, especially on tracks like Mouth for War, A New Level, and This Love. Now, I will say that despite his stronger points, the deeper you get into the discography, the more his performance starts to falter, likely in no small due to drug use. For that reason, I can't quite put him in S, but he's still pretty high up for me at A tier. Then we have Travis Meeks from Days of the New. Yes, I found the reason I don't need an excuse. Time to get a little bit more obscure here with this band formed in 1995, right in the peak of the grunge wave, but they never achieved the same level of success as some of the others on this list. They're mainly known for the single Touch, Peel, and Stand released in 1997, but they had a few other hits as well. Travis has a pretty similar delivery overall to Eddie Vedder, though with maybe a tinge more of that darker side that unfortunately only came out more later in life. Personal issues aside though, I think that pain really comes through in the music, and while he was a little later to the game, I'd still consider him one of the more solid additions to this list in terms of the strength of his yarls, so he is going to B tier. Then there's Hugo Ferreira with Tantric. In your life, you seem to have it all. You seem to have control. Now, as long as we're talking about Days of the New, we may as well move right on to Tantric, which was the post-grunge group most of the members of that band formed after being fired, this time with Hugo in the front. Now, I was shocked to see that Hugo is still making records under this name, with one that came out as recently as 2021, but they go back to 1998 and remain a bit of a one-hit wonder with 2001's Breakdown. Again, they had others, but this is the one that most people remember. Honestly, I think Hugo is a solid enough vocalist, but by the 2000s, I think the Yarl was becoming a bit more played, and his particular sound feels pretty second or even third hand at this point. It's always given me more of a look at me, I'm a rock star in the studio vibe, so putting him at C tier. Then we have Scott Weiland of Stone Temple Pilots. Another frontman with a lot of substance use issues, and one that in this case we lost too soon. Scott and his San Diego band actually got a decent amount of shit back in the day for being some sort of Seattle grunge ripoff lingering in the shadows somewhere between Pearl Jam and Nirvana. But they had big hits, and frankly, I never agreed with that. Scott and the entire band are incredibly talented, all on their own. Core is every bit as strong as 10 and Nevermind, if you ask me, and both Purple and Tiny Music were very strong follow-ups. Scott gives incredible performances on the likes of Sex Type Thing, Wicked Garden, Interstate Love Song, Big Empty, Trippin' on a Hole in a Paper Heart, and of course, another quintessential Yarler that is always my go-to for karaoke, Plush. Yeah, if you ask me, Scott is a legend. He's going to S tier. Then we have Robb Flynn of Machine Head. I promise I've been trying to not talk about Robb in this band since I've dunked on them more than enough this year. He wasn't even originally on the list, but then I remembered him during the writing process and there was just no way I could leave him out. Kyle from Exhorder may annoy me, but to his credit, I think he has improved over the years, whereas Robb only annoys me more year after year.
Endless trash!
I give credit to some of the riffs and even some of his clean and harsher vocals, but when his Yarl kicks in, all momentum is completely lost for me. And it sure doesn't help that the lyrics feel like something an angsty 13-year-old cooked up while bemoaning how people just don't understand that they're different. Yeah, Robb is going to D tier, and for reference, I originally had Alex Band of The Calling here. Then there's Niklas Karlsson of Orbit Culture. Yeah, let's get another metal vocalist on the board here, since this and Exhorder were really the bands that inspired the list to begin with. I have a lot of mixed feelings about Niklas's performance, as on the one hand, I love his harsh vocals. They are just so heavy and conjure the same kind of intensity as Gojira alongside the chuggy, groovy riffs. On the other hand, when he goes for the Yarl, it almost always loses me. I just find his approach to be kind of annoying and at times even off-key. Part of why I also wanted to do this list is to point out that yet again, nothing is usually bad all of the time, and just like my thoughts on longer songs and albums, it all comes down to execution. It's already a little bit more listenable than some of the other stuff on here, but I think that if Niklas put a little more care into both the arrangement of his melodies on these parts along with tightening up the actual performances, it would go a long way. So he's not near the bottom, he's at B tier, but could be better. Then we have the man James Hetfield of Metallica. James is an interesting entry on this list, as he has been able to utilize this approach both in thrash metal and hard rock, and frankly, I think he does it well. What Eddie Vedder is to grunge and post-grunge yarling, I'd argue that most other metal and hard rock vocalists these days, including Niklas, tend to owe a lot of what they do to the standard that James set. And also, like Eddie, it's amusing to imitate his particular yeah and hey, but I also genuinely think that the performances are pretty strong in terms of delivery. They really stick in your head. The lyrics could use some work these days, but outside of that, I think that James is a good vocalist overall, and is definitely part of the reason that Metallica has become the institution that it is, for better or worse. Not my favorite, he has some lower moments, but overall, I'd put him up at A tier. Then there's Brad Arnold of Three Doors Down. Now, I kind of went back and forth on this one, as Brad's approach is less full Yarl and kind of like a hybrid between that and more of sort of a Rob Thomas twang. That said, we've definitely been leaning into the butt rock here, so why not? I also considered Puddle of Mud, but I felt like Wes Scantlin is more of a Kurt Cobain kind of guy. More mixed feelings on these guys. Even as a kid, I found Kryptonite and Be Like That to be kind of lame, but that doesn't mean I always changed the radio station either when they came on. Very catchy earworm stuff. Brad carries his performance well enough. He's rarely annoying, but frequently dorky, and so this might ruffle some feathers in terms of looking at C versus D tier, but I'm gonna put him at C tier, you know? Like, I can listen to this honestly more than some of this stuff, and you know, if that makes you unsubscribe, then bye.
In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Don't let the door hit in the vagina on the way out.
Then we have Scott Stapp of Creed. Another heavy hitter here in the world of yarling. If Eddie Vedder is the king of the 90s, Scott is the king of the 2000s era, and for my money, the last truly noteworthy addition to this style. I also understand why he is highly divisive. He's a bit of a showboat. He clearly loves the energy of being a rock star in the way that most 90s artists didn't, and his voice is something you either love or hate. Personally though, I think that Creed kind of gets a bad rap. For a while they were really the punching bag of the rock community, shielded only by the literal rocks that were also hitting Nickelback at the time.
Have we got any Nickelback fans in Portugal? Are you sure? Up to you. You guys want to hear some rock and roll or you want to go home? See ya.
Nowadays, I see more of a resurgence of people respecting their music, and I'm one of them. I could go on and on about what a good songwriter Mark Tremonti is, but we're here to talk about Stapp, and I think he is a very strong singer who is also great at delivering choruses that, even if you don't sing along to them, never fail to get stuck in your head. So, Scott is going to A tier. Then there's Jason Wade of Lifehouse. This may be another controversial pick here, as Lifehouse is definitely kind of corny, but I can't argue with how much time I spent listening to No Name, No Face in high school. In spite of the more thirst-trappy qualities that especially grew their female fanbase, I do think that these guys are capable of writing good songs, and Jason's voice is not only strong, it's kind of unique. All of the usual Yarl hallmarks are there, but he manages to have just enough of a unique and kind of softer quality that I think makes him stand out. I also appreciate that songs can be poppy and radio-worthy while still bringing in some darker tones and themes, as with tracks like 6 Cycle Carousel, which remind me of other groups like Silverchair and even The Fray. Call me cringe, but I can still sing along with Jason, and so for that reason he is going to B tier. Then we have Sully Erna of Godsmack. So Eddie is the king of the 90s, Stapp is the king of the 2000s, and Sully is just the king of butt rock yarling, which makes me want to make an old joke that is probably no longer acceptable in the modern era unless it's delivered by Eric Cartman. As I said in my Godsmack tier list, I was never a big fan of these guys either, despite being deep with the adjacent nu metal bands they often toured with. Even so, I don't think that Sully is a bad vocalist, at least on the earlier albums. Much like Stapp, I think that Sully is great at making super infectious choruses, and god damn is it fun to imitate his voice when I hear tracks like I Stand Alone and Voodoo Come On. And in general, his performance on Faceless is a pretty strong example of doing this right from front to back. Unfortunately, I feel like he really fell off with that afterwards with some genuinely poor outings and fewer even fun singles, so I'm going to put him at C. It's kind of a guilty pleasure. Again, I know those Machine Head fans and Exhorder fans are going to be super pissed to see Three Doors Down in Godsmack over their lords and saviors, but my list, my rules.
Deal with it!
And as if I didn't piss off people enough already, we have Matt Heafy of Trivium.
Stop it.
So yeah, this is going to be another spicy take, but regular viewers know that I also don't really care much for Trivium or Matt as a vocalist in general. He's a fantastic guitar player, but outside of his clean singing, I would prefer he stay far away from a microphone. And as grating as his harsh vocals can be, it's his Hetfield impression that makes me want to throw my speaker out of the window. Fortunately, he doesn't always use this technique, but it's especially present on The Crusade and is the main reason why that may just be my least favorite Trivium album. Again, it's not just that he is yarling, it's that he is doing it very poorly. It's the we have James Hetfield at home energy of it. Again, talented musician, just bad decision making, and yeah, unfortunately, because we're rating this solely on the quality of their yarl, he is also going to D tier. Sorry, not sorry. But hopefully we can wrap things up here on a high note with Layne Staley of Alice in Chains. Now, as much as I tend to think of Eddie and Scott first when it comes to these stereotypes related to yarling, Layne is the one I consider to be the master. This is how you take something that could sound goofy, inject it with 100% of your own pain and personal demons, and turn it into, in my mind, some of the most haunting and powerful performances across both grunge and metal. I still remember being a little kid and hearing Rooster for the first time on the radio, and that was another one of those foundational experiences where I was like, I have no idea who or what this is, but but holy shit does it make me feel a certain way. And then add to that other equally incredible moments on Man in the Box, Them Bones, Nutshell, I Stay Away, and that fiery conclusion of Wood. Layne was undoubtedly the GOAT, and probably always will be. Another one we lost way too early, but he is going to the tippy top of S tier. Y'all, thanks for watching this stupid video. Check out this one for me and Cardivox Academy talking about our favorite metal vocalists overall. And again, let me know down in the comments what were your favorites, your least favorites, who should have been included that maybe wasn't, and yeah. See you in the trenches.
And I have to set you free.